Warning: some viewers may find the following content to be disturbing. Viewers' discretion is advised. This isn't one of those haunted game stories. At no point are you going to hear me claim something within the game spoke to me, reacted to my words, or forced me to punch myself repeatedly in the face. No, this isn't about a hacked game, or a game doing something impossible, or even something it shouldn't have. This isn't about a glitch, or a hidden satanic message, and at no point in time did I phone Nintendo headquarters only to have my questions answered with hushed whispers, or anguished screams. This story is about a game feature I don't think anybody has unlocked. That's it. No ghosts, no conspiracies, just a secret we were all supposed to find, but we never did. Something that changes an entire generation's childhood, and the very essence of a multi-billion-dollar franchise. This is about what I assume to be a previously undiscovered alternate ending of Super Mario World for the Super Nintendo. In 1996, I received my first computer as a birthday gift. I'd been on the internet before, had used computers before, but it had always been in a school or at a friend's house. This one was all mine. I explored the crude, prehistoric web of the time with great interest. I downloaded all sorts of pornography and even printed it out, which makes absolutely no sense. I also pirated media like a madman. Music, games, anything really. This is when I first discovered Mario World. I had never had a Super Nintendo as a little kid, so this was all completely new to me. I had downloaded tons of games along with the SNES emulator, but Mario World was always my favourite. For over a decade, the same Mario World run was my time-wasting hobby. I played it over and over, beating the game faster and faster, until I begun to lazily explore the worlds with no particular purpose. Game Genie codes helped immensely. I could turn off the timer and relive a particularly entertaining map for an hour as I waited for a download or any number of boring events. It was in the matter that I must have beaten and rebeaten the game thousands upon thousands of times. There was no comfort in the obsessive-compulsive behaviour of all this routine, but all of that was shattered when I saw the Blind Boo. The Blind Boo, as I refer to it, was hovering over the exit from the haunted sunken ship level later on in the game. I call it blind because it actually had no visible eyes. It was like someone had made a lazy ROM hack. But I know from years upon years of experience that this was a normal game. The Blind Boo just hung over the pipe, blocking it. I turned my back on it, but it didn't even chase me. I mean, how could it? It didn't even see me. But then I noticed something else out of the sorts. There was a key and a keyhole misplaced above the area. Keys and keyholes, as such, are ways of ending a level in an alternate manner and discovering a secret area. Still, this didn't belong there, and I knew it. For a moment, I considered the fact that I'd actually broken a ROM file from overuse. After taking a screenshot, specifically to show all of you Mario Bros fans out there, I picked up the key and opened the door, figuring the game would seize up and I'd have to reset it. Instead, it opened up a new path on the map selection screen. The whirlpool next to Bowser's already creepy head thing. I pressed the right arrow and moved onto the whirling drain. Oh god, no. This didn't really strike me as odd, because if you're familiar with the Mario World game, there's an area called Star Road that you may note has similar names. Just stuff like tubular and awesome, and all manner of dumb words and phrases. Most of the areas were called Vanilla Forest 1 and Donut Mountain 3 and all of that. But there were maps with odd names like that. What did concern me though, was Mario's expression. Surprise? Shock? Fear? I entered the map. Oddly enough, the whirlpool in the middle of the lake began with the standard castle entry animation. Mario walked up to a castle door, looked up, then went in. I could tell it was underwater though, because of the bubbles that periodically emerged from the sprite's mouth and that floated to the top of the screen. Inside the castle, it started to look more and more like I was just experiencing a glitch. There was no room to jump, no room to do anything but run left and right. I must have gotten right for 10 to 20 minutes, just holding the B button, running along at full speed. After a while, I ran into 1 or 2 blind booths in the darkness above, then 3 or 4. Then soon enough, the screen was completely full of them. They just kind of hung there, doing nothing. They wouldn't chase me if I turned my back, as with the previous blind boo. If I made any noise like Mario's jump sound, they would just kinda shudder a bit, like they heard the noise of Mario's movements, but they just couldn't do anything about it. Then something made me stop and turn the other direction. Now I knew beyond a shadow of a doubt that this map was designed specifically to screw with the player. Not because the giant bleeding bill was hemorrhaging profusely from its face, but because it was inescapable. There was literally no way to avoid being killed by it, as you can clearly see above. That is, unless you're like me, and you have Game Genie cheats on hand. I switched on the code for permanent invincibility. I let the bleeding bill chase me for a while when I was invincible, just to get a good look at the thing. I stopped and killed it with my invulnerable touch. Only when I saw a message that hadn't been there when I passed before. I hate you. That kind of creeped me out. But on the other hand, it was kind of interesting, because it means this was definitely a map that was supposed to exist in one point in time. There was some kind of plot element here, something undiscovered. What did it mean? Who hated me? King Koopa seemed to be the obvious answer. Or maybe the ghosts themselves. When you're in a haunted castle that you found by the way of a haunted ship, a bloody looking hate message isn't so unbelievable. I saw it again as I approached some giant booths. I was thankful that the blind booths ended at this point, because the more I watched them shudder, the uneasier I felt. I felt almost empathetic towards them, etc. The thankfulness ended when I turned my back on the giant booths and this happened. Giant booths with faces I hadn't seen before. They always looked mad at being awakened, angry that you were invading their haunted house across the Mario World island. This was different. They looked gleeful, demented even. You could see right down their throats, which seemed odd given the usual lack of detail their mouths usually had. And yes, of course I'm going to address the message that you saw in the picture. Why won't you die? I don't know why. Am I supposed to? Who's asking? I let the giant boo touch me, and they died like the bleeding bills, of which I had encountered 2 of. Despite any attempt to scare the player, I knew that being invincible meant invincible, no matter what they threw at me. After a while of running down the strange, claustrophobic corridor with no more eventful happenings, I came to a room with an exit pipe. Taking the pipe downward, I came out of the other end and dropped into a room filled with water. The water made sense, this being a sunken castle behind a whirlpool and all. I was rewarded with my troubles with a question mark block that released a mushroom for me. I could have easily done this with a cheat code, but the thought had escaped me as I faced all these new and strange sights. The first creatures I encountered in the underwater portion of the castle were thwomps. Unless you've been living under a rock since the mid-80s, you know thwomps are stone-like square creatures that hang from the ceiling and fall whenever you come near. They try to crush you essentially. Well, these thwomps lined up in a tight row and dropped repeatedly and randomly with no trigger or any sense of logic. They would just drop whenever they seemed to feel like it. Oh, and it also looked like these thwomps had been very successful. More cartoony blood. This was getting pretty unusual for the Mario Bros franchise, which I hadn't recalled seeing blood in it at all. Now I had seen it used 3 times. The bloody bills, the messages, and these perpetually smashing, grinding thwomps who were working their victims into a pulp. Forever. In the hammering effects of the water, I walked slowly under these things, making sure every single one touched me and died. There were almost 30 of them in a row. The sight of them just mindlessly crushing over and over again just made me hate them with an unsettling intensity. What's weird is that the blood caused Mario to slide as if he was on an ice level. After walking through that gauntlet of depravity, I swam into a more open area that was filled with spikes on the floor and ceiling. It was difficult to swim in this matter without touching the spikes, but I was still invincible. I didn't think much of it. I avoided them more for fun than out of any sense to be damaged. It stopped being fun really quickly, however. Now I knew what was going on. The bloody mess, the thwomps were endangeringly splattering. It was other Marios, past Marios that had tried to traverse this level and failed. I had to admit, this was an excellent touch, even if it was a bit ghoulish. Whoever had designed the map actually broke the fourth wall. He showed you the bloated, motionless abortions of the player's own careless treatment of Mario's tiny life. The bodies only floated up and down a bit, as if to show the effects of a light current. It was genius. I couldn't believe I might be the first person to only see this. I toyed with the idea of taking more than one screenshot I just presented to you, basically so all of you reading this could enjoy the secret map as much as I had, especially this weird little touch. But, without swimming, without kicking, or moving in any way, the dead Marios started to come at me like torpedoes. The faces remained blank and blue and dead, but they moved with astounding speed. They angled and positioned and worked all sorts of unique trajectories that left me almost nowhere to move. They continued coming at me, swimming and backing up and trying again. I just couldn't bring myself to let them touch me. I moved with more speed and skill than I had ever exerted, frantically trying to keep Mario free of the drowning victims that seemed dead set on rocketing straight into him. When I finally crashed into it and reached the purple exit pipe you see above, there had to be 10 of those things right behind me, pitching, turning, chasing me. I entered the pipe as fast as I could, thankful that it had worked properly and had Mario out of that situation in a heartbeat. The corridor that followed was empty, thankfully. It was just a blue underwater hallway of sorts with nothing to avoid or kill. It was boring and predictable like the game had been all these years, which brought back a sense of safety. At the end of the hallway, I came to a standard pair of doors you'd enter to face a final boss. Besides the doorway was a mushroom power-up. I didn't touch that shit. Going through the door was as you would expect. A typical change of map views occurred, and Mario was standing on the ubiquitous bridge over boiling lava. Or had it been blood all along? When Mario walked out onto the bridge, however, there was no boss creature. Instead, Mario looked to the side and froze. I couldn't control him anymore. He just stood there. Keep looking until you see it. I didn't even see it at first, so I don't expect you to notice it right away. If you still haven't spotted the thing, look in the third window from the left. FYI, that's not usually there. Mario seemed to regain his composure and looked back and forth slowly surveying the room. There was still no boss, but I couldn't control him. So I just stopped trying and just watched what happened. This went on for what seemed like forever. Nothing happened. Then a familiar face walked in from the right, dressed in green, tall and angry. It was Luigi. Mario recoiled in horror. It's difficult to say that without thinking how crazy it sounds, but Mario really reeled back with a sort of terror that was uncharacteristic for such a peppy, happy-go-lucky mascot like him. Then Luigi spoke. You thought Koopa worked alone? It was all connecting now. The messages scrawled on the walls. I hate you. Why won't you die? It was Luigi. He'd always been Mario's second banana, the player 2. The one who doesn't get the princess in these early games. No matter how identical he is to Mario in his skill set and ability, and tenaciousness and bravery. At the end of the day, it's Super Mario Brothers. That's just it. He's the brother. How he must have hated Mario. Who among us wouldn't? Think about it. No matter what happens, Mario always comes back. No matter how many corpses he leaves littering the battlefield, he's always there once more to leap and cheer and get all the adoration. And Koopa hadn't walked alone. I didn't know what this meant at first. If anything, But again, you just have to think it through. How exactly does King Koopa consistently succeed in kidnapping the princess? From day one, the original Mario Bros, it had always been an inside job. Still unable to control the character, I watched Mario simply cower in fear as Luigi leapt high into the air, as he could in Mario 2, the bastard child of the franchise. He jumped on the pathetic weeping Mario again and again. I was powerless to stop it. When he was done, he seemed to look at Mario's limp body with this overwhelming range. Then the bridge began to disappear. Soon Mario would be dead. As I looked on, I had an irrational thought. Would it be permanent this time? Within an instant, as Luigi turned to seemingly strike a victory pose, like he'd beaten the level, Mario awkwardly got to his feet and took him by surprise. Fear and sadness and confusion had given way to anger, and Mario overpowered his brother with little effort. To this day, I'm still haunted by the final result of his wrathful reprisal. There was the map's title. None of this was a glitch, it wasn't a mistake, it wasn't a developer getting back at Nintendo, and it was not a ghost haunting a Nintendo cartridge. It was planned, a purposeful part of the Mario Bros. Mythos. If you beat the game a select number of times, a secret part of the world would appear. And you learn from Mario Bros. Through Mario Land, Luigi had secretly been working against you, and he was in fact facilitating the repeated abduction and abuse of the princess. But why? Money? Power? No. It was all there. Because he couldn't take not being in the spotlight anymore. Not being Mario himself. After Luigi died, well, and truly died, Mario just sat on the edge of the bridge and wept. I was forced to watch this for minutes on end before the screen faded to black. I played the rest of the game through to see if anything had changed. Nothing else happened, as one would expect since this whole ordeal was just supposed to be part of the actual story. I couldn't access the whirlpool again. I'd seen the events once, and apparently that's all I got. It was back to the game as usual, the exact same game I'd played since the 90s. It would probably continue to play for the rest of my days. Well, it was the same, except for the final image. And that, my dorks, was I Hate You, a Super Mario World gaming creepypasta. My thoughts on this story? It is probably the most believable creepypasta that I've seen. All of this seems completely plausible. Well, not really technically because, you know, it's Nintendo, but this seems like the closest to it could happen. And for good reason, there isn't actually a ROM made for it, entirely for the game. It is unique. Honestly, I've never seen this kind of things before. And I just love how the story goes out of the way to not do anything supernatural or evil. It even says it itself. This isn't evil, it's not a ghost or anything. And I like that approach, it's really good. Plus the twist at the end revealing that it was Luigi helping Bowser the entire time. It's really cool. And it does make sense, you know, like how does Princess Peach get constantly captured every single time without fail? Just think about it, yeah. The story was great, underrated as hell. Like I barely see anybody talk about this Mario creepypasta. It's good. It's pretty tense. Some things of it. It's incredibly intriguing. I'll give it that. But overall, if I had to give this story a final rating, I'd give it an 8.5 out of 10. Sorry for that stammer there. I'm giving it an 8.5 because it's really good. But it's not the best. It's not persuaded because it doesn't reach my type of creepypastas watching the psyche of people fade away. But it's really good, honestly. Probably the best Mario creepypasta I've ever seen so far. I've yet to cover a kind of twin video to this called Mario. Yeah, that's the creepypasta, just called Mario. Anyways, this has been all from me, the Dark Author. If you guys like to see more, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell so you can stay up to date with my latest videos. And comment down below what was your opinion on this story, and do you have any more you want me to do in the future. Alright, this is the Dark Author. I am now signing off.